The drum you are now listening to is the famous drum of Tiroro, Haiti's greatest voodoo drummer. This is the drum that you hear at any voodoo ceremony. This is the drum that brings the good spirit to possess you or drives away the bad spirit. This is the drum that creates a hypnotic influence over its listeners, so it is said. It talks, it laughs, it cries, it warns. This is Tiroro and his famous voodoo drum.
Brother Voodoo, the man who lived twice. End of a legend. Amber flames shudder under the whispering caress of a chill draft, and shadows of liquid midnight flicker across the walls of a temple devoted to the worship of evil. A mind struggles through the oppressive mantle of oblivion, the mind of a man, and yet more than a man. Once, the man was known as Jericho Drum. Now, he is Brother Voodoo, a man whose mind stabs forward to momentary clarity and the realization that his body is helpless, bound to the splinter abrasive matrix of an invert cross. Then, he is aware of deeply droning voices, voices melded into a solemn, sonorous chant, voices which fluidly spill into his mind to displace his brief moment of clarity, hypnotizing him, leaving nothing but haze-smothered visions of the past. A past which had begun with the simple opening of a package. A package delivered to Loralee Tate, registered nurse, and a package which had erupted with the ruffled frenzy of a squalling black rooster. The voodoo symbol of he who dwells in the dark pit. There had been a note with the rooster, a simply scrawled statement announcing, "The Dark Lord has chosen you for his own." Ominous words which Loralee Tate had pondered that night as she drove her car through a milky sea of fog. Fog which coalesced into a lunatic face, pealing with maniacal laughter. Loralee had slapped the steering wheel to the side, fishtailing her car into a screaming swerve which punched through the guardrail, vaulted over the embankment, and speared into the icily turbulent clutch of the Mississippi River. The memories intensify now as Brother Voodoo relives the desperate plunge which had saved Loralee. The long moments of anxiety he had experienced as he carried the unconscious girl to his mansion on the outskirts of New Orleans, and the moment of her revival when she had stammeringly related her nightmare ordeal. Even stronger is the memory of an abrupt intrusion by robed men claiming to be the Dark Lord's pawns, delegated to Loralee's brutal abduction. An abduction the Voodoo Lord had been powerless to prevent, wrapped as he had been in suffocating tendrils of slithering fog. He remembers the agonizing return of his senses and his immediate journey to the dilapidated shack of Mama Limbo. The blind crone, whose Hungan powers enabled her to see and divine the location of the abducted girl. The house on Headtaker's Hill, a sprawling mansion steeped in a heritage of bloodshed and atrocity, and the current home of Desmond Drew, whose protestations of innocence had convinced Brother Voodoo that Loralee was not to be found on the austere premises. But as the Voodoo Lord had departed from the mansion, a second assault by the Dark Lord's acolytes had given him cause to doubt his conclusions. Doubts which persisted for but a handful of violence-swirled moments before the brittle crunch of a bludgeon to his skull terminated all thought. and brought him to his present situation, helplessly bound to an inverted cross, suspended within the temple of the Dark Lord, his mind still possessed by the malevolently lulling chant. Now, the chant builds to a tremulous crescendo, and abruptly is shattered by the louder bark of a single voice raised in fervent supplication.
Hear me, Dark Lord. Your servant, the Black Talon, lower of the fiery pits, beseeches you. In my hands I hold the instruments of your sacrifice, the dagger by which I shall spill the blood of your chosen victims, and the chalice in which that blood shall be served unto you.
The stentorian words echo and re-echo, harshly reverberating within the vaulted chamber. And, as if in response to the words, a swirling fog blossoms to miasmic life around the stone statue of the Dark Lord.
It is a sign that we should sacrifice the girl now. No time to free myself, but if I can summon forth the spirit of my murdered brother Daniel.
Desperately, the man to whom the power of voodoo is a brother silently mouths an arcane incantation, and the spectral apparition of his dead twin streaks across the vast chamber to possess the body of the nearest ritualist. For an instant, that body turns rigid, and then, at the supernatural command of Brother Voodoo, it moves, drawing a gleaming dagger from within the voluminous folds of its dark robe. A dagger which slashes the rope binding Brother Voodoo's ankle, and is then hurled upward to free the Voodoo Lord's wrist, after which Daniel's spirit reunites with Jericho's body, rendering Brother Voodoo whole again and free.
Stop him! The Black Talon commands it. I don't care if your Dark Lord himself commands it. No one stops Brother Voodoo. Not when I've gone through all I have to save this girl.
Effortlessly, the Lord of the Loa scoops Loralee Tate's limp body from the sacrificial dais.
Stop him!
And bolts down a labyrinthine corridor stuffed with gloom, followed by the bellowing shouts of the enraged cultists.
Girl's too heavy, slowing me down. Must do something to buy time. This torch should suffice for one who has the power to control flame. Now, may Guide Limbo guide my aim.
Brother Voodoo whips the flaming brand over his head and hurls. The torch dashes to the floor, and a hungry wall of whining flame spurts upward, halting the passage of Black Talon and his howling minions. Then, in the shelter of the flame's respite, the Voodoo Lord resumes his flight, his bare feet slapping an urgent tattoo down the unfamiliar corridor, straight into a
dead end.
He pauses, contemplating for only the briefest of instants, then acts with grim resolve, gently depositing his unconscious charge on the floor of a basalt-hewn alcove. Grunting softly, he covers the girl with his crimson cloak.
It is time for Brother Voodoo to exercise the power granted by Papa Jumbo. Why doesn't this wall of fire die down? Wait, that sound. It's the sound of the sacred voodoo drums. But where is it coming from? And that figure, wading through the flames, unscathed. It can't be, but it is. It's him, Brother Voodoo. Take him in the name of the Dark Lord. But Master, no man can face one who walks through fire. The Dark Lord shall remember this cowardice. I shall see to it after I slay Brother Voodoo myself. I shall be honored, Black Talon, to usher you across the threshold of hell. Your insolence is the vow which will seal your grave. Not likely, Black Talon, for only a Gan-Gan, a home Gan whose powers have deserted him, has need for a weapon such as your dagger. Brother Voodoo's powers have not fled him, and Brother Voodoo needs no weapons to deal with the likes of you.
The steel spring force of Brother Voodoo's blow slams his opponent into the rock wall, and the Voodoo Lord lunges forward, his balled fist again smashing out But Black Talon, although still stunned, evades this second blow and lashes out with his own hand, a hand which is not clenched into a fist, but is sheathed in raking talons. The Lord of the Loa frantically twists aside, but not, however, quickly enough to avoid slashing talons which rip through his arm, trailing vivid streamers of blood.
Am I such a gon now, Brother Voodoo? Now when it is your blood which stains the floor? Weapons are weapons, Gangan, whether they be daggers or talon gloves. And it is Brother Voodoo who disdains the use of weapons, unlike you, Gangan.
Enraged by Brother Voodoo's barrage of taunts, the Black Talon kicks out a claw-barbed foot, a careless move, for it is one intercepted by Brother Voodoo. The Voodoo Lord grapples for a moment with his panic, squirming foe, then wrenches the grasped leg upward, toppling the Black Talon to the dank floor, where his slicing claws are seized, and their threat still. And Brother Voodoo knows he has triumphed. But it is a knowledge held but briefly, before his mind suffuses with washing shades of gray, oozing to black. Unknown time later, the black washes back to gray, the diffused gray of fog. A slowly shifting, drifting fog, which eddies into a configuration spawned in nightmare. The face of the demented Dark Lord. No, the face of Mama Limbo.
Yes, Brother Voodoo, it is me, the one who sent you to the house on Headtaker's Hill, so that the other members of our sect could capture you before you could rescue the girl.
Then I was right. My suspicions are confirmed.
No one must prevent the sacrifice. And to make certain that you don't, we have shackled you with chains, since you managed to escape rope. But you will be released soon, after the girl has been sacrificed, and it is time to make our next death offering to the Dark Lord. Now, let the rites begin.
There is hollow silence for a moment, and the assembled ritualists fill the void with the resumption of a chant first begun, seeming eternities ago. Brother Voodoo listens to the ominous chant, looks down upon the prostrate form of Loralee Tate, ponders what he has deduced about Mama Limbo and her relationship to the Dark Lord, and strains against the chains manacled to his wrists, channeling every ounce of his strength and that of his brother Daniel's into the effort until he shatters not the chains, but the massive inverted cross itself.
Damn him! Stop him! Stop him!
But a man wielding two 50-pound flails of solid wood is not easily stopped, even if he were damned.
Stop fighting me, you fools. Don't you see yet? You've been duped. There is no Dark Lord, just fog, drug gas, and Mama Limbo's voodoo powers hypnotizing you into seeing the Dark Lord's face, into believing the Black Talon is a living Loa instead of a mortal man in a simple costume.
Then, overriding Brother Voodoo's attempted appraisal of reality, Mama Limbo utters a single unintelligible word, or perhaps merely sound, and the fury of combat transforms to the dormancy of ice, inert, rigid. Every living being within the chamber freezes in awkward place, except Mama Limbo.
You are wise, Brother Voodoo. The Dark Lord is, in truth, nothing but the soul of an old woman's desire. An old, ugly, blind woman who desires youth and beauty and sight. And who knows how to obtain those qualities through a process learned from Countess Elizabeth Bathory, whose ancient diary is now in my possession. The diary tells of how she bathed in the blood of 4 beautiful virgins to restore her fading youth. I have already deceived the members of this cult into killing 3 virgins. And there is nothing you can do to stop me from spilling the blood of the 4th and regaining my lost youth and beauty.
But before Mama Limbo can spill that blood, a rope, weakened by Brother Voodoo's struggles, now parts. And the splintered remnant of the inverted cross it had supported plummets downward and collides with a queasy sound, killing Mama Limbo instantly.
Mother!
Simultaneous with the old woman's death is the disintegration of her spell. And the first to be released from immobility is the Black Talon, also known as Desmond Drew, currently a most anguished son.
We've been tricked. Just as Brother Voodoo said, there was never a Dark Lord. Just a scheme contrived by Mama Limbo and her son to achieve her selfish goal of immortality.
And before Brother Voodoo can move to stop them, the insensate mob of cultists engulfs Desmond Drew with a brutality born of outrage.
I suspect that even Drew was duped by his mother's scheme, but there's nothing I can do to save him now, even if he deserves saving. The best course of action is to get Loralee out of here. Lock the mob inside long enough to make a phone call.
And when the Lord of the Loa returns from that call, he finds that the fresh night air has revived Loralee Tate.
Brother Voodoo? What?
You're safe now, Loralee. I've summoned the police, specifically your father. And it looks like he's just broken all records in arriving here.
I don't understand.
Few people do, Loralee.